I lost 20 pounds after menopause with Asian Pilates. But what surprised me most is that the weight did not start moving when I got more disciplined. It started moving when I stopped doing what almost every woman is told to do when her body changes. And if you are in menopause right now, feeling like your body suddenly stopped listening to you, I need you to stay with me. Because my first breakthrough had almost nothing to do with pushing harder, eating less, or forcing better results. In fact, that mindset was part of what kept me stuck. For a long time, I thought the answer was more control, more discipline, more effort, more pressure. If my clothes felt tighter, I tightened up. If my stomach felt heavier, I ate more carefully. If the scale went up, I told myself I needed to be stricter, more focused, more committed. And from the outside, that probably looked responsible. But inside, it felt awful. I was tired all the time, and not just physically. I was tired of thinking about my body, tired of trying to do everything right, tired of putting on clothes in the morning and already feeling behind before the day had even started. I remember one morning standing in front of my closet, running late, trying on a pair of pants that had fit a few months earlier, and they would not close. I stood there half-dressed, staring at myself, not even angry at first, just confused. Because what I felt in that moment was not, I need to try harder. What I felt was, why is nothing working anymore? That question followed me everywhere. It followed me into the kitchen when I was trying to make better choices. It followed me when I looked in the mirror and pulled at my stomach. It followed me when I saw pictures of myself and looked at my midsection before I even looked at my face. And what made it worse was the noise. Everyone seemed to have an answer. Eat less. Walk more. Lift weights. Track everything. Cut carbs. Try fasting. Stay consistent. Just be disciplined. Almost nobody was talking about what happens when your menopausal body stops responding well to pressure. That was the part I did not understand yet, and it was the reason my first breakthrough took so long. Because I was not failing from lack of effort. I was failing because I was using the wrong signal. That was the shift. And no, I did not realize that overnight. At first, I just knew that the harder I pushed, the worse I felt. More inflamed. More exhausted. More swollen. More disconnected from my body. I was doing the things that are supposed to make you feel in control, but instead I felt like I was fighting something that would not move. What I did not see at the time was that my body was not asking for more force. It was asking for a different kind of support. That is why Asian Pilates became such a turning point for me. Not because it was trendy, not because it promised a dramatic transformation, not because I thought, this will make me lose 20 pounds. Honestly, what caught me first was much simpler than that. It felt like the first thing my body did not resist. And if you have been stuck for a while, you know how huge that is. Because when you have tried enough things that leave you feeling more tired, more guilty, or more behind, the first method that feels supportive instead of punishing stands out immediately. That's what I noticed. It did not feel chaotic. It did not feel aggressive. It did not feel like another routine that would demand all my willpower and then leave me exhausted 3 days later. It felt structured, but calm. Intentional, but not harsh. And that may not sound dramatic, but in real life, it changed everything. Because the first real breakthrough was not the weight loss itself. The first real breakthrough was that I stopped dreading the process. That was new for me. Before this, almost every attempt to change my body came with tension attached to it. I would start out motivated, then I would feel pressure, then I would feel tired, then discouraged, then guilty, and then I would tell myself I needed to recommit and do better. That cycle looks like discipline from the outside, but it feels like emotional whiplash from the inside. And menopause made that cycle worse, not better. Because once my body stopped responding the way it used to, every setback felt more personal. Every tight waistband felt like proof. Every slow week felt like a failure. Every day I did not feel in control, felt like something was slipping away from me. That is why this mattered so much. Asian Pilates did not just give me a method, it changed the emotional climate around trying. Instead of starting from panic, I started from steadiness. Instead of trying to punish my body into changing, I started moving in a way that felt like I was working with it. Instead of sending my body the message that it was broken and needed to be fixed immediately, I was finally sending it a calmer signal. And that signal changed what came next. The first thing I noticed was not the scale. It was relief. I looked less puffy. My stomach felt less hard. My clothes felt less hostile. My face looked less tired. I did not wake up every morning feeling like my whole body was gripping. That was the beginning. And I think this is where a lot of women miss their own breakthrough, because they are waiting for dramatic proof. They are waiting for a huge drop on the scale, or a big before and after moment. And because of that, they overlook the earliest signs that something is actually starting to work. I almost missed them too. At first, I told myself it was probably temporary. I did not trust it. I had been disappointed too many times before. I had started too many things that felt promising for a week and then fell apart. But this felt different for one reason. I could stay with it. That was the second real breakthrough, and maybe the bigger one. I did not have to force myself back into it every day. I did not have to become a stricter, harder version of myself to keep going. I was not constantly negotiating with my own resistance. I could return to it naturally. That matters more than most people realize, because so much of menopause weight gain is not only about food or movement. It is also about what your body can sustain without going into another cycle of stress, backlash, and discouragement. I had spent years trying to create change with methods I could not comfortably live inside. That is exhausting. Even when you are being good, it feels heavy. Even when you are doing the right things, you are carrying pressure every minute. You wake up already evaluating yourself. You go through your day feeling like your body is a problem you have to manage. That is not a small thing. That drains people. And I think it drained me more than I understood at the time. So when I found something I could actually live with, something that did not make me feel punished, frantic, or constantly behind, it changed my consistency in a way that finally gave results a chance to build. That's when the weight started moving. Not all at once. Not dramatically. Not in a perfect straight line. But enough that I could feel something important had changed. For the first time after menopause, I was no longer trapped in that old cycle of force, failure, and self-blame. I was building rhythm instead of pressure. And rhythm is what carried me. I think that is one of the biggest lies women are sold in this phase of life, that the answer is always more intensity, more force, more discipline, more suffering. But suffering is not proof that something is working. Exhaustion is not proof that you are serious. And being hard on yourself is not the same thing as having a good strategy. I wish someone had told me that earlier. I wish someone had told me that sometimes your body is not failing because it cannot change. Sometimes it is resisting because it feels overwhelmed. Sometimes the method is wrong for the phase you are in. Sometimes what looks soft from the outside is actually the first approach your body can finally respond to. That's true for me. And that is why I call this my first real breakthrough. Not because 20 pounds was the final story, but because it was the first proof that my body was not broken. It was the first proof that I did not have to live in permanent frustration. It was the first proof that I could stop escalating pressure and still see change. And emotionally, that changed everything. Because once you stop waking up disappointed in yourself every day, your whole life starts to feel different. You stop seeing every meal as a test. You stop looking at your body as a constant project. You stop measuring your worth by how hard you can be on yourself. You stop thinking that punishment is the only path to progress. That kind of shift is bigger than weight loss, even though the weight loss matters. And if you are in that place right now where you feel stuck, swollen, discouraged, and tired of trying, I want you to hear this clearly. Do not automatically assume the answer is more pressure. Do not assume that if your body is not responding to force, it means it cannot respond at all. And do not confuse exhaustion with failure. Sometimes your breakthrough does not begin when you finally get tougher. Sometimes it begins when you finally stop fighting your body in a way it cannot win from. That was the start of everything for me. If this resonated with you, go watch the Menopause Weight Reset series next, because I made that playlist for women who are tired of trying harder and still feeling worse. Each video builds on the last one, and if this story felt like your story, that playlist will help you feel more understood, more supported, and much less alone. And if this message spoke to you, please subscribe to Hormonal Balance Institute. Every time you subscribe, comment, or engage, you help this message reach another woman who may be standing in front of her mirror right now wondering what happened to her body and why nothing seems to work anymore. I want us to reach those women with something gentler, wiser, and more hopeful than the usual noise. So subscribe to Hormonal Balance Institute, and then go watch the Menopause Weight Reset series, because losing 20 pounds was only part of the story. The real breakthrough was the moment I stopped using the signal that had been keeping me stuck.